Good morning. It's Sunday. We're here, me and Lulu, with your weekly good morning. Just call me C. So great to see you. We took Sunday off last Sunday for Easter, and we hung out and had our first Easter. I know I love you too. I swear, she's such a blessing. All right, I'm going to put you down now. Are you ready? Okay, bye. Oh, it's going to be a week, I tell you. It's going to be a huge week. And when I say huge, there's a stellium brewing in Aries. And I just think, I went looking at the chart of the United States because the United States' fifth house is Aries. And there's just going to be a lot going on. So do your best this week to potentially discern what you want to watch on the news, watch how much you take in and how it's affecting you, because I think it's going to be hot, hot, hot. I think people are going to be cranky, angry, bringing up crap, and you may yourself feel, oh, that's okay, J-Dog. We took last week off for Easter, so I wasn't here either. We just relaxed and this is my new life, is just literally being on the Design Home app and enjoying the days. Okay, before I get into this very big week, and I say big because the stellium, that is a group of planets forming in one sign or house, is in the sign of war, aggression, anger, resentment, and me. It's about me. So there is going to be a lot of feelings about that, meaning like, how is life affecting me? How am I being respected? How is my leadership, holding up and stuff? So, okay, I don't know if Small Wildflowers is going to be here today. I haven't heard from her, and I've left her alone because I'm a Aries rising with a Taurus moon and oh, there she is. I was just about to say to everybody, and sometimes I feel like I'm a little bullish and a little too, assertive and passionate about things. So I can be a little much sometimes. So I've been giving her a little Terry timeout. How are you doing, Small? You're at work? Oh, stop leaving you alone. Well, I didn't know, I just, our last conversation, I was so impassioned and, obviously the rogue, I want to go completely, 180 degrees from what is acceptable. So I thought maybe that was a little much, but let's talk about the transits this week. Okay. Holy scamoli. I can't even, I'm going to start with the ramp up. Today is the 12th. And this forecast is basically for this week. And today we have Mars at 2 degrees of Aries conjunct Neptune. Mars is I'm sorry for the playback, but I just called me C's comment, and she said she went into the hospital. Oh my goodness. Everybody, I want to say this week with the stellium in Aries, the other way it could play out, and not just in aggression, is moving too fast, not watching where you're going, or being, on such a mission that you miss little details. So be mindful, because every single one of the signs in the houses that we talk about and the planets, they have duality. They have their strengths and their weaknesses. And the human nature is to focus in on the weakness. So when we look at, Mars coming into conjunction with Neptune in the house of its rulership, Mars could very much be angry at having to wait, deal with emotions, have empathy for someone else, be the peaceful warrior, when Mars might just want to, because as they come into this conjunction at 2 degrees, Neptune's going to hang out for a bit, Mars is going to move on. They are in a sextile to Pluto. So Mars and Pluto together, Mars in rulership in Aries, Pluto in Aquarius, which any planet that comes into Aquarius is going to look down the line and have a certain amount of emotional intellect. Like they will process their emotions through intellect and will be in some ways not empathetic. So now we've got Neptune literally tasking these two planets that rule war, criminal behavior, power, control, the underbelly and the dark to rise up, and to rise up to a bigger picture of what are you really mad about, okay? Because by the 15th, we're going to have Mercury join, and over the week between the 15th and the 18th, Mercury will move from 0 to 5 degrees of Aries. Neptune will stay in at 2 degrees. The moon will join the party on Wednesday and come into an exact conjunction with Mars. So Wednesday could be a very emotional day where, take this job and shove it. You're not rowing in my boat. Get the hell away from me because you're not on my team. The Aries energy is very much about redefining things through the lens of the self. And this could come into play when it has Saturn is in here too. Saturn's at 7 degrees this week. Mars moves from 4 to 7 degrees and ends the week in a conjunction with Saturn. Okay, now most of the time people go, oh, Saturn moves slowly and Mars moves fast. These are two military signs. These are planets. These are two planets that will strategize. And with Mars and Saturn together in Aries, what I think is going to happen on a world stage. I have been trying to stay out of this war stuff too much because I'm so mad about it. And I have so many things that I'm always mad about that I'm really tired of being mad at things I have no control over. So that is one of the things that each one of us as individuals kind of gets to move into a direction that might feel frivolous to some people. The world's going to hell in a handbag. Don't you care? Of course I care, but what can I do about it? Right? Because this last few days from the 15th to the 18th and at the same time, okay, so this is in the beginning of the sign, Aries. At the end, in the mastering degrees, the sun joins Chiron at the end of so the ego is up for grabs. Chiron is exasperating the wound. And I literally wrote down action, fire, arguments, and military action. So be mindful because I think I just think this is going to be a very fiery, very, I want to stay away from unconscious people who don't know that they are unconscious and they're banging around the world and they're flipping people off on the road and they're like, they're entitled to it. And yet this could be very sketchy. So be mindful. And how many times can I use the word mindful in a minute? Hey, just call me C. Oh, I'm sorry. I said hi to you. Queen Leo, it's so good to see you here. I have to say that out loud. And I wanted to comment, thank you, J-Dog, for saying that my hair looks nice. It's been weird weather where I live, so my hair is constantly frizzing, and I try to flat iron it. It doesn't really work. Okay. All right, everybody, let's go back a little bit and let's talk about the first few days of the week because we have Venus in a sextile to Jupiter. And this is kind of nice. It's going to be exact today, but it's going to be felt until the 15th. Now, Venus is traversing her homeland of Taurus. She's headed over to Uranus. So I really want to emphasize, and depending upon what house this is in your chart, I want to emphasize this self-worth dynamic, because as Venus and Jupiter meet up, this is about beliefs. It's about expansion of my skills, my talents, my opinion, aka my voice. So when we're looking at Aries, okay, which is for Taurus rising, the 12th house stellium, but with Venus and Taurus making a sextile to Jupiter, and at the same time, Cancer naturally squares Aries. So what I think is going to happen, if I'm not getting too complicated, is that everybody is going to feel like either is my expansion being clipped? Are my beliefs under fire? Does my voice do people respect my opinion? Are they respecting me? Are they respecting my skills? There's so much with Neptune entering Aries, with the Saturn conjunction, which is now loosening up. This history, this idea of repression, limitation, obligation, duty, responsibility. Who am I responsible to? Who am I really obligated to? Am I following my bliss? These are all the questions that are popping up. And a lot of it will feel very jarring because we've been in these habits of behavior that up until now have felt like I'm living a productive life. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And all of a sudden, there could very well be this whole like tidal wave of, am I enjoying this? Is this bringing me peace? Where am I really going? Who am I playing to? Because as Mercury today is at the anaretic degrees of Pisces, okay, coming out of Pisces and into Aries, this is where Mercury's like goes from feeling underwater, almost feeling like a little overwhelmed, so many things coming at me at once. My emotional body, how is this playing out for me? And then as Mercury moves into Aries, because Mercury actually likes Aries. Mercury's not really emotional. Mercury is curious. Mercury has information, but Mercury doesn't have any moons. So Mercury is emotional, but not emotional like Pisces or Cancer. And I say that with love because when it comes into, and right now in these anaretic degrees, it's in a sextile to Uranus. So there's an urgent feeling of taking some kind of action to make, and not just Mercury, my mind, Mercury, my everyday activities, Mercury, my everyday health habits, Mercury, my everyday life. If you think about it, and I'm going to be generous here, 9 out of 10 people every day get up and they are on a mission for someone else. They either have to pay their bills, so they go to work, they have to take care of their kids, maybe they have to take care of their aging parents, maybe there's always something that's going on that we do unconsciously because we've been trained our whole lives to be that way. So now with Neptune coming into Aries, this energy is eroding the old story and allowing for a new story to be written. Remember, Neptune rules lyrics. So you're rewriting the soundtrack of your life. And this week, while the stellium in Aries is taking place, stoking everything, think of it as like a campfire that gets a little bit potentially out of control. And there's so much smoke that you almost feel like choking. I'm a little nervous about this week because, again, the United States, and I've got a little I want to talk about with that, what these yahoos up in Washington do affect our lives, not necessarily their lives. So pardon the commentary, because that stellium is making a sextile to Uranus, air, aviation, liberation. We also saw this moon launch, Artemis, which I thought was very interesting because as the planets are moving into the air and into fire, we haven't seen a space launch in years. And the stellium in Aries has that sextile to Pluto and Aquarius. So this Aries stellium has a great opportunity to ignite a fire underneath us that compels or inspires us into a new way of being. But you could have an interior implosion, or you could see an implosion around you. Be mindful, because I really think, and I want to offer this too. I made a note to say Mercury. We don't think of Mercury because we always talk about communications. We always talk about, things feel like they come out of us, but it also is a social sign. So be mindful of your siblings, your cousins, your neighborhood, the people that you interact with as well. They may get a little, they may be their own little fiery selves. So, again, like a duck, don't go into the fray. And all that. Okay, I need to see what you're talking about. First of all, never pray against anything, just call me. See, pray for the balance of whatever it is. Okay, so and she's at work today. This girl, a small. Oh dear God, are you kidding me? Now possible spots in your lungs. Holy Mother of God. Okay, I'm just sorry for the playback. I just wanted to look at the. Absolutely, I will tell you, it's better to avoid people and have them be a little mad at you for avoiding them than getting into a full blown confrontation. And that is so likely. Again, I really want to emphasize that the stellium in Aries is in the beginning. There's a lot happening in the early degrees, but then there's Chiron and the sun that takes place over the 16th. You'll feel it from the 14th to the 18th. And this is where the ego, remember, the sun is exalted in Aries and Mars is ruler. This Aries energy right now is going to be so incredibly powerful. And as I say this, I worry for myself because in certain moments, I absolutely go unconscious and like become the fiery Terry that, is just the human walking around and I'm like, rah! So I got to keep my mind. All right. So let's just talk about what's going to happen with a little bit with America. And I do want to say this too, because of the degrees of the South Node entering those early degrees of Virgo, I personally have done kind of an interesting, I didn't mean to do it, but I walk 30 minutes every day with the dog and she walks at light speed. So that I consider exercise, where with Lucky, it was an exercise in stopping every leaf, every rock, every twig. I've been doing my rebounder every day for 10 minutes and you'd be really surprised. I'm at day 35 and that little 10 minutes has helped start to bring more strength into my core and my balance. And then I started doing the celery juice, just enough, so that I don't get too overwhelmed by it. But I've been doing that every day and now I'm on day 30 of that. This all being mindful of doing small things that will help bring your body back into balance, because there's a lot going on that is, when I talk about things being fiery and things being the claiming of the self is so important right now. And this is not necessarily about trying to convince someone else. It's really about kind of owning it yourself. I think, and I've noticed about myself, that oftentimes I think that I own my own opinion, but then I look outside to other people to validate that. And that's been coming up quite a bit. Kimchi is good for the belly too. Yes, Queen Lear, you're on track there. So let's talk a little bit about America, because the transit Pluto at 5 degrees of Aquarius is conjunct the United States South Node at 6 degrees of Aquarius. This, to me, makes me a little nervous, to be honest with you, because the habit of the South Node is here in Aquarius to think down the line, to rebel, to take action, and it doesn't come from a place of emotion sometimes. Then it's trining Uranus. Uranus is the United States Pluto. Okay, United States natal Uranus is at 8 degrees of Gemini. This is a trine to Pluto. So the Pluto in the United States transit is conjunct the South Node and making a trine to Gemini. That makes me also nervous because it's in the 6th house. And this, so I think something's going to happen this week with the United States and with whatever's going on with this WAR idea. I think that Neptune is representing the water, and isn't there a problem with some sort of strait, a waterway? I think it's Hokum, or I don't remember the name again. I try to stay ignorant about this stuff. I got to be honest. Now, the United States is experiencing Venus in Cancer this week. She will move out of Taurus, and later from the 12th to the 18th, somewhere towards the later part of the, she's going to hit Uranus and then she's going to move into, I'm sorry. Pluto, transit Pluto is making a quincunx in conjunction, however you like to say it, to the natal Venus of the United States in the 7th house of Cancer, as well as natal Jupiter at 5 degrees of Cancer. And this is going to be, the natal Jupiter is exact. So this is where Pluto, being this sort of power and control idea, just makes me very concerned. So be mindful when you're walking through your day, because I think that I literally feel like the stellium in Aries is conjunct the United States. I see and I feel like between Mercury, Mars, Neptune, and Saturn, there's going to be military action on the water. And that stellium is squaring the Venus and Jupiter in Cancer for the United States. I was going to make a video yesterday about this, but my South Node is being pummeled by this stellium, and the only thing I can really do is the Design Home app and design rooms, and that's the only thing that's giving me peace. And I will tell you, I have 65 5-star designs in a row. Just saying. Now, transit Venus is in the 5th house of Taurus. She's going to enter the United States 6th house of Taurus on the 17th, and she's going to begin a conjunction with transit Uranus at 29 degrees of Taurus. That's at anaretic degree. The moon will join the party on the 18th and 19th, which is going to add an emotional explosion. When I say that the environment around us is going to be chaotic, going to be contrary is the word I want to use, contrary to what it is that we want. I think a lot of us, hey, Rose Light, it's great to see you in the room. Welcome. It's just going to be, you're going to have to find your own peace. This is what I'm trying to say, is that while I don't think any of us are directly going to be under siege, I do think that the actions that are being taken are moving us in a direction we were not wanting to go in. And the United States' habits, by its natal chart, it's inadvertently defaulting to those habits. And if anything, I really think we need to pray for wisdom for the leaders of the world, not just our country, because whoosh, I went looking, I tried to find the United States, or the birth chart of the Republic of Iran, and there was too many varying times to actually try to look at how the charts lined up together. But in one version, it was very unnerving, because it was as if these countries are personalities, and they just have karma together, and we're the chess pieces of this karma. So where I'm trying to go with this is that if we look to our own lives, we claim our own peace, we don't go into the fray, because what we don't realize is that we can hear things, we can listen to things that we think are outside of ourselves, but they start to inflame us. They start to keep us getting hot. Like, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe that happened. And then we become less patient. And I think that's the ripple effect, because when the transit Sun and Chiron hit the United States Chiron, which it's already been floating, the United States has, I believe it's 20 degree Chiron in the 5th house of Aries, or 4th house of Aries. The United States has a wounded ego. And if indeed for some reason there is a military coup that we don't win, this is where the United States gets into a little bit of hot water, because it could react instead of taking intentional action. Because, the country as an entity has its own ego and its own ego identity. I don't know who Eric Swalwell is, but I just feel like we are, good morning, memory of the sky. We are in, as the United States revisits the themes of 1756 and 1766 and 1776. And because we're not just revisiting the theme of one day, there were decades that took place as Pluto was going through Capricorn, okay, before it moved into Aquarius for the United States. So we're revisiting these things. And to me, the main idea is that this country was built on our freedom of speech, our freedom of belief, our freedom of action to build our own lives. And that slowly, I hope this isn't inflammatory, been eroded. And as a result of that erosion, the planets are supporting us by taking us through this loop again. And I think this is where each individual, because we are part of the collective, and as we turn away from the disruption and then energetically align to our happiness, and we may have to go into a bit of a Neptunian slumber for that, kind of like all of a sudden I feel like I saw a Cinderella movie with Drew Barrymore and Shakespeare was floating on his back in some lake or river. I think that's kind of what we have to do right now in order to realign with our soul, not realign with the personality that lives inside the human body that is known as the ego. So I think it's going to be a really crazy week. And I don't know if it's just 1 week, but this one feels extremely warm and fuzzy. Literally don't get too close to the fire. I do too. I think that when Mercury, and I think the combination of Mercury in Aries, and then as Venus gets closer to Uranus, there's going to be weird upsets, it could even be like, this is the thing I want you to know. Not everybody is demonstrative. Not everybody speaks their mind. So some of you could literally have interior implosions where somebody does something and you don't necessarily act on it, but it shifts you deeply on the inside. I had someone call me recently. I had a hard last year, and some of the dates are coming up. This week, not this week, but this April, May, June, things are coming up, and anniversaries are starting from loss. And I had an old friend, and I'm now putting that in quotes, that we had a disagreement. And it was really because he took actions that were very inappropriate. And when he called me after, I wanted to call and see if you were over it yet. Implosion. And then another implosion and another implosion and another implosion. And what I saw out of this person that I've always thought was a very nice guy, I saw that they have pigeonholed me into a role in their life where they get to be the supposed hero, quote unquote, by making a phone call to check in on me and then managing my emotional body for their comfort. And if I wasn't emoting in a way that made them comfortable, I'm now being villainized as I better get over it. I'm reading too much into it, whatever the story is. That is my personal history. So now in the recognition of this loop, am taking different action, but not action towards that person, action towards me and my own emotional body as I walk through it. Gaslighting. That's exactly the term that comes to mind. My mind was, I'd actually been, unfortunately, I felt like this person literally is acting like my sister, because my sister's always gaslighting me emotionally and telling me that I'm minimizing what is true. That is the bottom line theme. Whatever I'm feeling is not true, is I'm overreacting. No, I'm not. What I've done is reached a limit. Okay, are we ready to go into our readings for the week? Let's get to it. We start with our birthday month. What is today? It's still Aries territory. So you guys, all right, I am currently enjoying Chiron on my ascendant. God bless Chiron on my ascendant. And in that God bless, I found myself going deeply into my human body, only focusing in on the wound. But what did Chiron do? Chiron took that wound and became the wise one, became the one who knew of herbs, knew how to war, but not war for the sake of profit, but rather to war against imbalance. So it's really important for my Aries people, my Aries stelliums. Let's say your rising is not Aries. Let's say, you don't have your moon or your sun in Aries, but you have a bunch of planets in Aries, or you even have 2 or 3. One, look at it. Where is it? And what is it wanting you to be brave about and to carve your own path? Because this is your solar return. And your tarot card this week is the Chariot. Now, this is an interesting card upside down, because normally it represents victory. It represents two opposing energies sort of fighting each other. And the character is being tasked with coming from their emotional body, trusting their intuition. In almost every deck, the Chariot is depicted with the base and sacral chakra covered by the Chariot itself, which is compelling the Chariot to the charioteer to look to his more higher vibrational chakras in order to solve the problem or get to the end of the road. With the Chariot upside down, I would absolutely think that this is what is the challenge for Aries. Maybe you're not feeling indecisive because you're not feeling the push-pull. And if for some reason, let's see what the angels have to say, because we need to know where this is going. Because I don't think it necessarily means that there is not victory. I think it could potentially mean that you've settled on a plan of action, but are you doing it from a high vibration? Are you doing it from a soul's calling? Sometimes we think we're doing something from a higher vibration, but it may not be. It may be inadvertently an ego vibration. An ego vibration that says, look at me, I'm right. All right, our first angel is Celeste, a happy move to a new home or place of employment. Oftentimes that's a shift in thinking. Chantal is the angel of romance, talking about the reignition of romance and or things that you love or something new coming in. Seraphina is in the angel's advice, but she's upside down. So this is about family. And then Adriana is upside down. Aries, there's a lot about family going on here. Okay. Because we think Celeste rules the home, the Chariot rules the home, Seraphina rules the home. Very interesting. There could also be here, the Chariot could be indicating that there can't be a win. Sometimes in situations. All right. The butterfly is joining Celeste. Chantal is being joined by the Wealth card. Seraphina is being joined by Merlin. And finally, the Swan. I know exactly what this is about. Some battles cannot be won. And Aries doesn't know that. Aries, in its most raw form, every battle has a winner or a loser. But wisdom will tell you that the only real win is a win-win. So the Chariot upside down is sort of saying that there is no victory. There is no victor here. Because Celeste, talking about the home, and butterfly being one of transformation of beauty, I feel as if what Spirit is asking Aries to do is turn away from the imbalance. The key is love and moving towards what you love. That's where the harmonious wealth comes in. Seraphina being upside down, the happy family upside down, and balance, Merlin representing balance. Balance is truly the most we can ever hope for. Happiness is the ability to know that during disruption, I can look towards what actually makes me happy or where I find peace. Because in the final position is another transformational card. And Adriana is saying that she's trying to lead Aries there. And the Swan is offering transformation in trusting a bigger picture. Oh, there's the Looster. Look at her getting in her little bed. I have to tell you, she's such an incredible blessing. I can't even begin to tell you how much she has beyond helped me. Beyond. So for my Aries, and those of you that have birthdays this week, because we're going into the last degrees of Aries, you naturally have this Chiron coming on either your ascendant or your sun or your moon. And you've tasked yourself in this life with mastering whatever the degree is. I'm 26 degree Aries rising. So here this is about trusting my intuition and where I belong. The 6 is the Venusian energy. So I want you to kind of look at that, because Celeste, I think, is really talking about the home that lives inside the self. And the beauty comes from the transformation. Somehow you're coming out of a dark phase. And this would be because you get to recognize that happiness is not something that's situational. Happiness is somewhere you turn your head to look in the midst of chaos. And that's why the angels are saying that with Seraphina being upside down, there would indicate there's not happiness right now. The Chariot would indicate that there's not happiness right now, that there's somehow something is opposing itself, and we're not emoting, or we're not empathizing, or we're not intuiting or nurturing potentially what is most important to what makes us feel happy. And then with Adriana being upside down, this is where Aries gets so hot. It can't hear, it can't feel the support it's trying to get, because it will feel like a loss. Well, I lost, and my ego will get triggered. And Aries, has a strong ego. It really does, because it's all about the self. So the bottom line is this: some battles will never be won. They will be what they will. And if you're battling with a fixed sign or a fixed energy, you'll never really win, because once they decide and they default to wherever they're going, they're not coming back around the other side. So, that's where you bang your head against the wall, or you just exit stage left. All right, we ready for our Tauruses, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Lou, no lickies. No lickies, little girl. I know. Look how pretty she looks. She's such a good girl, I got to tell you. She is she's Lulu, and I call her Lou all the time as well. But I'm so glad she's here. All right, Taurus. This is the Knight of Pentacles. This is the Virgo energy. Very much about process, very much about daily activities and habits, very much about potentially your pets. And I want to offer this too, because the idea that Virgo rules pets is interesting to me, because Virgo is within the process, and Virgo is a very loving sign, but Virgo can be like, well, I'm going to make sure all the things are done well. Like, we're going to make sure the schedule gets done, that, you take your vitamins every day, your routine. And when we watch our animals really, they have a routine, but the routine is all centered around their own personal serenity. They get up, they have their walk, they have their morning constitutional, they have their food, and then they take a nap. So I wonder, let's see, Taurus, because this idea of Uranus in the anaretic degrees, literally 29 degrees of Taurus, about to move into Gemini and not coming back for 84 years. So this is something to do with your voice, something to do with your communication, because Virgo also rules communication. Anywhere Mercury is dominant, you're gonna get that, and it could be about your thinking and how you're processing things. Because the thing about Taurus is that because it rules history, that it can settle into things that are out of balance but tolerable. It's Saturnian in some ways. So let's see where we're going. Whoa. Our first angel is Chantal, the angel of love. Then we have Celeste, very interesting. They swapped places for our Taurus. There's Yvonne, the angel of vulnerability. And then we have Azure. All cards are straight up. Now, with Venus coming into conjunction with Uranus in Taurus, this could bring unexpected love. This could bring someone back out of nowhere. You can meet someone on a plane. You can meet someone in an airport. You can meet somebody at a space shuttle or a space launch re-entry party this week. Chantal is being joined by the perception card. Interesting. The Queen is joining Celeste. Yvonne is being joined by the burden card. And Azure is being joined by the cow. All right, so this is very much for my Tauruses. The Knight of Pentacles is representing your process of manifestation. And I don't want to say it in a corny way. I want to say it more in a way, because manifestation has become a buzzword that I don't really like anymore. But we are intentional in co-creating our experiences. And with Chantal representing love, I really think, and the South Node going through Virgo, this is an erosion of, or I should say, this could potentially be an erosion of mental processes that no longer serve you, not just perfectionism, not just being of service to others, because you can find great joy in that, but how am I going about it? Am I aware of the love that I have in whatever my daily processes are? Am I aware of my own perceptions? Am I intentionally taking action throughout my day? Celeste being, now normally, I know in the previous read, I saw her as home. I really did. But here, 99.9% of the time, Celeste represents a way of thinking to me. When it talks about shifting to a new home or a new place of employment, you can put my body anywhere. It doesn't change the way I'm thinking unless my experience changes. Here, what I think that Spirit is saying about the Knight of Pentacles is it's time for Virgo to put in reception as part of your process, a part of your everyday life, meaning this, like when you're planning, okay, I'm going to plan a trip and I'm going to plan. Oh, here's a perfect example. I was at the market the other day and there's a Pisces checkout woman and she was going on vacation in 2 weeks and she was already planning on being lonely. She was already planning on mourning her girlfriend because they broke up. And I told her that is very much your intention. You could put yourself on a whole different stretch, because the burden card here with Yvonne, the card of vulnerability, is you actually being vulnerable to the bigger picture. With Virgo, if you can't see it, you're one of the signs. If I don't see it, I don't believe it. If I can't see the process of how to get there, I don't know that I'm going to get there at all. And this is the absolute opposite, because your perception in the foundational position gets to be about what you love, not about how to get there. Because Azure is saying that your desired outcome will come into fruition, but you have to be in a space, and I say have to, of asking for something and receiving it. So earlier, I think it was Just Call Me C said she was going to pray, but it was praying to get rid of the boogeyman or the bad thing, whatever she said. What we want to do is rather pray for the balance, pray for the harmony, pray for the feeling of feeling good, and then letting Spirit and the divine energy, the chi of us, to take over the rest. So while it will be a bit of a burden to be vulnerable to only doing like maybe 1% of what has to be done to get where you want to go, it would be more powerful energetically to walk down that path than it would be for you to try to do it yourself, meaning physically walk through something. So I think that's super powerful. And Taurus, this is the cow and you are the bull. So it's time for you to ask and then give life to receiving. Okay, it's called Design Home, DJ. And it's like a meditation for me. And I know people think that meditation is sitting to some sort of binaural beats and waiting for God to bestow a burning bush of information. But I don't see meditation like that anymore. To me, I see a lot of meditation is where I allow the monkey mind to, design home. I absolutely, to me, it's kind of funny because this is again where I noticed my ego. I'm so good at this. I'm so good at that. And I've been getting really excited because when I got 10 in a row, I was like, oh my God, I want to have a 5 rating. I want the highest rating there is. And then I got 10, then I got 20, then I got 30, then I got 40, then I got 50 consecutive 5 stars. Like literally, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have a new career. But then I thought that this was a bigger lesson to this. It wasn't about, and I'm telling you all I did that. Right now I have 65 consecutive 5-star designs. I think that's pretty cool, and I'm pretty proud to share it with you. But what I recognize this week is that Spirit didn't want me to go look to somebody else to applaud me. They wanted me to applaud me and just to take it in and enjoy it. So I really want to encourage you, if you go on the design app, Designs by Terry Hunter, you can find me, and I'll be your friend on the app. But at the same time, it was about sitting here and allowing myself to feel joy in my life. Normally I get up and I got to do the dishes. I have to walk the dog. I got to make sure I do this, make sure I do a video. All this has gone by the wayside lately. All of this has been like everything I've wanted to do that has any vibration of a have to do, because this is what normal people do to be productive, is going under some sort of weird cone of reevaluation for me. Because on my deathbed, and maybe it's Mike's, we're getting up on a year, Mike's birthday is coming up, and then the year of his passing. And all of that time he spent laying flooring, and working so hard for his house. And then the years he's supposed to enjoy his life, he's gone. When do we actually enjoy this fucking life? When we take the time to do it. So that's how I got 65 5-star designs, because I just took the time to enjoy it. And I got to tell you, I actually do. All right, on to our Geminis. Oh, the Knight of Swords upside down. This is actually kind of nice, because this guy can be a little harsh and a little fast and a little take no prisoners. So something here is slowing down. Let's see. Now, let's be mindful, Gemini, because, as Uranus moves back into your sign, you early degrees. And I mean to mention this every single time, and I sometimes I forget often. When Uranus moves into Gemini, it doesn't just affect Gemini. It affects all of the mutable signs. So the Virgos and the Pisces will feel it in square. Sagittarius will feel it in opposition. So this is kind of the interesting thing about astrology, because we often look at it through the lens of our own planets, but we may not have any planets in those houses, but it'll square the house. So let's see where we're going, or it'll be opposite the house. So it's important to look at things, even if it feels like there's no action there. Oh my God, Smalls, have you been losing weight too? I missed a lot in the chat. You can call me too if you want, by the way. You have my digits. I'm like my grandpa now. I'm almost always home. Except when I'm walking the dog, I never take my phone out. I'm so weird. I actually don't take my phone out. Okay. Knight of Swords is our tarot card. Grace and Antoinette is about compassion. Oh, Gemini. Then we have Rochelle, following your heart. Then we have Astera, reaching for the stars without compromise. And then Shanti, but she's upside down. So there's still some. That's what I figured, that you're busy. That's kind of like, I don't know. I was so impassioned in our last conversation. I felt like I was a tidal wave a little much. All right, Gemini. So first of all, I want to slow our roll. The Knight of Swords is slow your roll before you say something that you may want to recapture, or you may be, because Grace and Antoinette feels like it's really might be about self-compassion, but let's see. It's being joined by the horse. Very interesting. Rochelle's being joined by the Grail Knight. The Wind Fairy is joining Astera. And the Hawk is joining Shanti. All right, so for my Geminis, I want to offer this. Your thinking is probably going to be upside down this week a little bit. And I want to say it this way, because Gemini sextiles the Aries energy. So you will feel the massive fireball that's coming out of Aries this week. But this could be on some level inspiring. And I want to offer it this way, because if indeed the Knight of Swords being upside down, something is slowed down. Maybe thoughts aren't clear. Mercury's still at the later degrees of Pisces, but when it moves into Aries, because the horse really, for me, it feels like it's about moving away from a situation and having compassion for yourself while you do it, okay? Because it may be a situation or a person or a dynamic that up until now has been perfectly fine or it's worked out well. Because the Grail Knight and the Rochelle saying to literally to bow down to the sacred knowing of your heart. That's one of the challenges of being in an air sign. You know, you're always tasked to kind of go through your mind in order to, you know, see your emotions. And we see that right here in the angel's advice, because the wind fairy is asking you to start to use your thoughts to tell the story of what you want to experience versus what you have been experiencing. Reach for the stars with your dreams and desires and don't compromise. And I really think that's about, well, it may not have happened now, but it still has possibilities. Up until now, it may not have been this, but it will be that. Remember, with Mercury ruling the Gemini energy, we're looking at this sort of, this is so interesting. As I started to say that, there's also, it may be that you find yourself thinking very differently than the people around you or your community or people you've known up until now. Because Shanti, the angel of peace, is upside down and the hawk is up. Now, the wind fairy is a 29, reduces down to an 11. The hawk is an 11, reduces down, well, it's a master number of thought. When I'm looking at this number sequence, I feel like I'm looking at potentially, I'm walking through a period of time where I have to have compassion for myself as I recognize that there's no longer alignment or balance in a situation, that maybe we're moving in two different directions. And rather than getting hot and angry about it, I actually feel like maybe Gemini won't want to talk about it, but actually think about, you know, how do there's something about diplomacy coming through here. There's something about moonwalking or sidestepping a situation so as to avoid an argument or to avoid an unpleasant situation. Or maybe even with Mercury still in Pisces, you don't have quite clarity. And then as it moves into Aries and it comes into connection with Neptune, you may find that your spiritual thoughts and the way that you go about things, mere muggles think are ridiculous or don't believe in, and you might feel challenged. But I don't know if they'll challenge you directly as much as you might know what they think, and there's little conflict there. Because the hawk is really saying that there are signs and omens that are coming across your path that are trying to lead you down a new direction. And on some level, having to have compassion for yourself as you step away from a very normal human process to start to implement a soul's way of going about things versus a muggle's way of things. Oh my goodness, Small. It's just one freaking thing after another. Are you keeping food down? Can you actually eat now, now that the radiation is over? And are you able to eat solid food? I got nervous about those energy drinks because there's carcinogens in them, and they have you drink them while you're going through cancer treatment. It feels kind of counterintuitive to me. Well, whether you're hungry or not, that's just something you'll have to just make it happen, you know. A little bit of food's better than no food at all. All right, let's go on to our Cancers, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Ah, the Emperor upside down. Isn't that interesting? Because it's Aries stellium absolutely squares you, and it's squaring you while Venus and, well, I shouldn't say Venus necessarily is in, Venus gets into Cancer. Where did my notes go? She's coming into Cancer. Hold on. Venus is at 16 degrees of Taurus, sorry, making the sextile to Jupiter in Cancer. Okay. All right. So be mindful of that, because this Emperor upside down is kind of interesting. And I don't think it has to do with independence. It might have to do with, stepping away from the fire, the anger, the resentment, the old story, whatever the, the Aries energy is. I do a lot of things that, I make all sorts of little brews. I made chicken broth this week and drank that. I will buy dandelion root and I will steep it in tea with other herbs. This week I made a mouthwash with sage, chamomile, and candula, where I simmered it on the stove, and then it helps clean all the bacteria out of your mouth. I'm all about, as I said, the celery juice every day. I've been doing black seed oil as well, which is another one that's good to get rid of things. Okay, for our Cancer, Shanti is in the foundational position, but she's upside down. Astera is in the opportunity, the obstacle. Athena is upside down in the angel's advice. And then the final position is Celeste. Interesting. It's kind of a vicious circle. You don't have the energy to feed yourself, and then if you don't feed yourself, you don't have any energy. That's good to know. I'll have to note to self. Kimchi is good for a lot of things. Oh, thank you, Stephen. I don't feel glowing. I feel very, very old lately. Tired. But I'm 66 and a half years old this week. Okay, Shanti is being joined by the deer. So this is very interesting because Shanti is about peace and tranquility, and the deer is about gentleness and diplomacy. So I would bet, all right, Astera is being joined by the focus card. Athena is being joined by the novice. Wow. And Celeste is being joined by the Grail Knight. I want to say this for my Cancers. Oh, thank you. You're so sweet. So the Emperor here, upside down, this is where the Mars energy is kind of the more challenging energy. Upside down, there's fire, there's brimstone, there's anger, there's resentment, there's old shit going on. With the deer and Shanti being upside down, you may have to deal with other people's crap. Or, you may find old stuff that comes up for you. Sometimes it amazes me how I can sit in this house by myself and have full-blown argument with things that I have no control and I can't, go back and change them. And yet they hit me because somewhere this is tasking you to be gentle with yourself for some reason. It's tasking you to stretch for your own peace and tranquility. And that is Astera saying to reach for the stars without compromising. Spirit wants you to focus in on that. And this is, again, I don't know that this is about outside of yourself, because the Emperor is very individualistic. It's very about me, but this is upside down. So maybe you think it's not about you, but it's up to you, Cancer, to make it about you. Like put yourself beautiful, put yourself in the first position, put yourself in this place of feeling like I matter. I'm not just here to be Cancerian, to be nurturing, to be empathetic, to care just about you. And this is the other thing. Cancer rules patriotism. So here you could be very upset about the things that are happening in the country or in your community, or things that aren't fair or nurturing or loving. Because in the angel's advice, Athena is kind of like the Emperor right now. Somehow you're not asserting yourself in a loving way. And maybe you're sick and tired of that, or maybe you're feeling a little bit like a doormat, or maybe you're feeling like I give and I don't get anything back. But if indeed that's the case, it's about taking care of yourself during this time. It's about saying, you know what, I'm going to stop and I'm going to do a couple designs on the home design app or design home app, because it makes me feel good and peaceful before I go on to my next freaking thing. Because the Grail Knight is literally asking you to seek the sacred within. Now, this Celeste energy is about happy home and employment. And for some reason, here we are on Cancer, and I'm focusing in on the happy home. The happy home that lives in your mind. The happy home that says you don't have to do everything. The happy home that says, you know what? If that laundry doesn't get done, if the car doesn't get washed, if the taxes don't quite get done today, it's not the 15th yet. have 3 more days. You know, I really think there's something about focusing in on what you want versus where you've been. And also it feels as if there's going to be some situation or some sort of awareness this week of where you've been clipped, where you've not been able to assert yourself, where you've not been able to feel that sense of independence. And now I think it's about claiming that, in a gentle way, of course, with yourself and with others. And this week you could just blow your stack. You'd be like, I've been in this, I've been cooking, blah, blah, I've been doing this for you. And what am I getting? What have you done for me lately? Janet Jackson. You could feel that way. But then again, will it bring you the peace you want? Oh, thank you, Stephen. That is so wonderful. It's a collective to me. This group, I'm not just this energy. It's all of us together make this energy. And I do think, even though, and I say this is my ego. We have a small tribe, but we have a mighty tribe, and we have a devoted tribe. And I think they're devoted to me. I think you're devoted to each other. And I think that's important. And I like being part of the mix. Don't get me wrong. But I think it's important because we need each other. We're all kind of boss bitches in our own lives. And, coming together on Sunday helps us feel like we're not just all having to be the big girls and big boys in our lives and for the people around us. All right. Are you ready? We're going on to our Leos, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. And all the cards are coming almost upside down. The Princess of Pentacles. Now, this is an interesting energy because this is the page of Earth. So there's something about the beginning of something. Now, the first thing I notice about this particular deck is, and I'll show you this straight up, but she's upside down, Leo. The first thing you see is that hand over her heart. You see this almost like orb or this, soul's representation right there in her solar plex, between her sacral and her solar plex chakra, and then the star above her. So here, I think on some level for my Leos, this would be, with it being upside down, you're not anchoring into your heart. And what do you represent? The heart. So Spirit is going to, and with Pluto going in opposition of you, early born Leos, and in square to Scorpio and Taurus. Remember that, because, we tend to only really focus on those conjunctions, but the ripple effect of these planets are quite formidable, to say the least. And Queen Leo, can I say, I know you're here, but I've really missed having your energy in the room. And I think about you every week. And I think about you a lot because of little Lulu. Because she really has brought so much into my world. All right. Leo, our first angel is Maya, but she's upside down. Maya is schooling and education. Then Rochelle is all about following the heart. Okay, here we go. Somewhere, my Leos, you've got to dig deep. Layla is about spending time with God and the angels, walking in nature. And Crystal is also upside down, but she's about having hope and faith. So you might be going through a little bit of who isn't? But Leo, Pluto transits are always, the phoenix must rise. And Pluto will not carry any baggage out of the baggage claim. I just heard Miranda Lambert singing baggage claim or whatever that song is, because, come get your shit. I love her smoking angry, lovely self. Okay, Maya is being joined by the serpent. Oh my goodness, Leo, you're kind of getting tasked this week. Rochelle's being joined by the deer. The deer's coming up again. Layla's being joined by the death card. There's that Pluto energy. And there is the king joining Crystal. All right. So basically what Spirit is saying is that, Leo, it's time. You're not following your heart. You're not listening to your heart somewhere, or you're worried about something. This Princess of Pentacles, something's not anchoring in, something that wants to come from here, a new beginning. Not the fruition, but the new beginning. Because Maya being upside down says you're forgetting something that you already know. And I absolutely think that's echoed by the serpent, which is about knowledge. And so to me, and this is where Leo can get a little, fixed. Because I've tried. I don't want to try anymore. I'm done. God bless you, Leo. Because I think Rochelle is saying, be gentle with yourself, follow your heart, continue on. This is, look, every single journey that you take on this planet to create something and to experience it has a hill, a valley, a lake, a desert. It has rain, it has sun, snow, sleet, and hail. And to think that you're going to walk through something effortlessly. There's someone that I know that actually, as I've known them for over a decade now, I've come to really think that they are probably the most challenging of all what can happen in a chart. Because not only do they have a Leo rising, they have a stellium in Aries in the 9th house. And that stellium makes them very Jupiterian and very entitled. They also have Jupiter in the 9th house. And so there is a feeling of they will only try as hard, and if they don't get instant validation, they quit. Because I say this because I don't want you to quit. Layla is saying more time with God and the angels, more time in nature, more time being a cat, prowling the jungle, honestly, because the death card is some sort of transformation. And I think that transformation is about being gentle with yourself as you practice following your heart. The heart does not require manifestation. The heart does not require eyes to see anything, ears to hear anything, or lips to say anything. It feels it because it's time to be the king. It's time to be the sun and take your happiness into your own hands. Because Crystal's saying, having faith and hope, you don't right now. You've forgotten how to have faith and hope. You've forgotten how that this is the mind meld about Lulu, okay? I miss Lucky very, very much. I looked at his pictures. I had a total last night. I was going down memory lane and I was just very weepy and teary-eyed, missing him. It's been 6 months since he passed away. It's been, 9 months or 10 months since Mike passed away. And then there's Lulu, she sees me get emotional and she crawls up into my lap. She licks my face. She wags her tail when I look at her. I can see that the moon and the sun rise and set around me. Lucky wasn't like that with me. He was a lot of wonderful things, but he wasn't that. And I needed that. And so while I'm very sad about some things, that transition, that death, that Plutonian transit brought in something that I really needed much more than I realized I needed. And I think that's what you're not recognizing, Leo. There's something from your heart that you want, and it's upside down. And part of it is because whatever you've known, whatever you've felt, whatever you've intuited, it's kind of been put on a shelf somewhere. And it might be through the Pluto opposition, and that the pain is superseding the ability to see down the line and what's possible. And that would be inferred by Crystal. So, yeah. Okay. Oh, I don't know how, I have to say this. When you have animals like, that are, I don't know how you don't have an animal. Like I can't not have an animal, but my 5th house is Virgo a lot. I mean, it's technically Leo, but Leo's just a small portion of it. It's a lot of Virgo in there. So this morning when I woke up, and she's a very funny girl because she knows the difference between me getting up to pee and mull around and me getting up. So I got up and I came back to bed. And when I did, she had moved to the top of the bed. And when I got under the covers, she just zipped right under the covers and did her little circle and then stuck her little nose out the top. And I was just like, literally, I was crying tears. I mean, not crying, but I was. Because I'm like, you are such a joy. And it's such a mind meld to feel so much sadness and so much joy at the same freaking time. And I think that's really the encapsulation of life. All right, Virgo, here we go. The 4 of Cups. She really is. She's sweet and spicy. Yeah, well, you know what? You're not the stray cat lady. Those cats are yours. They're just outdoor cats. Okay, Virgo. 4 of Cups is an interesting energy because it's very much to be kind of stuck in what's happening. All you can see is those 3 cups. And on the original Rider-Waite deck, it's like this. Like, yeah, I'm just pissed off. I'm dissatisfied. And in the meantime, God is trying to hand a gift to you. Now, in this particular deck, we don't quite see it the same way, but we do see these three small cups that this woman is focusing in on. And then there's this huge, beautiful cup where the sun flows, where it brings gifts of abundance, of joy. And interestingly, while I don't know off the top of my head, if anybody knows or wants to Google, there are two cranes in this particular photo. And I'm very curious, because I think the cranes in Asian symbolism, there's something about prosperity, or there's something about abundance that's coming. Okay, let's look and see. You do have you have almost have a baseball team. All you need is one more, right? 9, and it's a baseball team. I wish I could get into taking videos, because Lulu does some of the funniest things. She does these things on my bed where I have quite a few pillows stacked up like this. I mean, over half the bed. And I make the bed every morning. And then I can hear her, and she goes in there and she pulls the two of them down, and then she crawls in between them, and she literally burrows into the pillows. But I can never get quite into the room without her hearing me. And then she stops and she looks. But I just always say, oh, go ahead. I don't care. Sometimes I can see where she used to get into trouble from her previous people. Oh, really? Well, honestly, you can't keep those stray cats from they propagate like crazy. Oh, Georgia, that's really significant. If the moon is in the 8th house, is that Aries as well? Because obviously it's the moon in the 8th house is transformational for sure, but where in the 8th house? If it's in Aries, then you're okay. So then you have your moon and Chiron in Aries, and you're going to experience this whole, oh my goodness, go under the cone of silence this week. 27 degrees, by the way. I just want to say this is that, the 2 is always representing how you feel. It's the moon energy. It's the intuitive energy. Oh, with Jupiter. Holy crap, that's a lot. That's a lot. The moon and Jupiter and Chiron, that's very transformational, because the moon is going to be about self-nurturing. Let me go back to the 27. The 27th degree is the Gemini degree. Okay, so there's that. But in Christopher Witecki's step system, the 2 represents the moon, how I feel, how I intuit, how I nurture. The 7 is Neptune. So this is really where will I allow myself to step into that royal soul's energy. Neptune being that coming from my heart into a creative space. And when you add the moon in there and Jupiter, you've got quite an angelic dynamic for transformation, because Jupiter rules the connection to the angelic realm. The 8th house rules the death. So there's a lot going on there. I better get on with our, am I on Virgo? Yeah, sorry. Virgo's like, get on with it, woman. We have processes to get to. Grace and Antoinette. Oh my goodness. First angel. Chantal, the angel of love. Yvonne, the angel of vulnerability. And finally, Daniel, the angel of marriage. Okay. Virgo sun conjunct Pluto. There's a transformation of the ego. I have my Venus within 5 degrees of Pluto, and it's in Virgo and in my 5th house. So I feel like a lot of what I have to do is to help transform people's self-worth. Isn't that interesting? And I had to have my self-worth ripped to the ground, stomped on, trampled on, and thrown away in order to claim it. Okay. Grace and Antoinette is being joined by the love card. The power, the dragon is joining Chantal. Yvonne is joined by the burden card. That was in the previous reading. And then the raven. Okay. I want to say this for my Virgos, because having the South Node going through your 1st house is, and it may potentially your 12th house, potentially your 2nd house, again, depending upon how your chart is laid out. But I want to offer this because that Four of Cups is a gift. And what it's telling you is that your focus is in the wrong direction. It's not in on what potentials could come from what Spirit has to offer you, but instead focusing in on what has been eroded, what has felt like it's gone away. Grace and Antoinette is asking for compassion and love. Now, I want to offer this because compassion and love is not just about intimate love. It's compassion for the journey of love. You know, as we individuals look through the lens of our eyes and what we see in the way of, and I'm talking about general love. I'm talking about the love of my life, the love of community, the love of friends, and the love potentially of an intimate partner. But here, I really think it's more of a general love because Virgo's so process service oriented that I think the biggest thing that Virgo misses is that, and this is my personal astrology opinion, is that you are designed to take your 12th house talents and have them be of service. And when we look at the idea of Leo being the 12th house, sometimes you don't see your talents. You don't see yourself because all of that self on the stage is in that 12th house of invisibility, of quiet. So now this is about having compassion as you step into what you love, as you start to claim forth living and experiencing this larger cup that actually feeds all these other cups. Chantal, here, it could be about romance, but I think it's more about being confident, being clear, being, I am willing to receive another person, and I'm also willing to receive my own information about how I process when I'm in relation with someone else. Because Yvonne is about vulnerability and here is a burden. And one of the challenges could be that there are certain things about Virgo's everyday life that you've become accustomed to, that you enjoy, that you are in control of. And yet at the same time, when we want to have a partner, we also end up having their opinion, their wants, their desires along with it. I want Chinese food. I hate Chinese food. I never want to eat Chinese food. When you're by yourself, you just never go to the Chinese place. Because here, I really think that this has a lot to do with your viewpoint. The Daniel rules history. Daniel rules the story. And for Virgo, you would be looking at your experiences as process. So while you may want to have a loving, intimate relationship, there's that potential. You'll have to call it forth, and you'll also get to call it forth in a way where the process starts to align to the peace and the exchange of energy between two people. Because this would indicate that whatever Virgo loves right now is being put on hold or being put on the side, and that it's about having a strong sense of strength to step into that vibration, to look away from what is bringing me dissatisfaction. But that vulnerability, the unknowing part, that's the thing. You're moving out of what you know that you know maybe crap, but you know it. Now you're being asked to move into and have compassion for yourself as you move into a space where you're calling forth an experience. And Daniel is saying, it's time to fly off of that history. It's also saying that there is the potential for there to be a relationship coming, but you've got to allow for synchronistic events. You've got to allow for the co-creation, for spirit to inspire someone else into your space. That's part of the whole deal. It isn't about you getting on Match.com or you going out and trying to find something. It's more about calling it forth and then being prepared to receive it. And that preparation comes from how much will I let go of perfectionism? How much will I, if spirit brings someone interesting across my path or an interesting situation that I love, how much will I allow it in? Or will I instead go back into my Virgo? Can I squeeze it in here? Can I squeeze it in there? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yes, your neighbor is quite the one with the big hips, always, swooshing her way into a situation. I think I told you guys that my neighbor Gus had himself medically removed from the planet on the February 17th eclipse. and they've been renovating his apartment. And Gus was a very non-confrontational person, and the neighbor, has taken advantage of these weak people that won't stand up for themselves, and her hedges have grown huge. You can't really see them today, but see them? Can you see them? They're blocking everybody's view. Well, now they're going to have to rent his apartment, and I'm so excited because I'm pretty sure the landlord is going to have her finally cut those bushes, and she's going to be so pissed off. But then I'm going to have to look at her ugly mug all the time. Anyway, everything's a trade-off. All right, are we ready for the Libras? Libra, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Your tarot card this week is, the Nine of Pentacles. I love this card. This is the card of a self-made person. This person has walked through every one of the first through 8 pentacles, and the hard work has paid off. Now, this character knows how to put up healthy boundaries, as indicated by this tiger, this Black Panther tiger. Then we have her with the dove of peace. She's made her resources, and she is in her kingdom. Let's see where we're going. I know, neighbors, this is Jupiter in Cancer, okay? This is where I laugh, because so often Jupiter goes somewhere, yay, Jupiter's so great, Jupiter's so great. Jupiter will make people an entitled asshole, okay? And that's who this lady is. She is the most entitled. She tried to bait me the other day. She saw me, and she just looked at me, and she started laughing. And it was at a distance, and I had my sunglasses on. So I just looked the other way, because I have spent the last 3 years in war in my apartment in one way or another, either with her, with the friggin' other neighbors, with these contractors. And while nothing was done that fell on my side of the fence, I had not one fucking victory in any of this, honestly. I'm just like, you know what? I can't be bothered anymore, because all you people want to use me as in some way to work out your shit. You want to fight with me, you want to argue with me. And up until now, I've played, because I have a warrior in me. I can't help it. I'll tell you, I think about chucking food into her yard all the time. I always, because, I've been making bread a lot, and I throw these loaves away, and I want to just chuck them over the balcony. But every time I don't do it, I feel like it's a triumph over my own self. Okay, here we go. Libra, Yvonne, the angel of vulnerability. Azure, your desired outcome will happen in the near future. Xana, the angel of protection, is upside down, and Celeste is upside down. We've seen Celeste a couple times. This is the thing. I think people just want to lash out. They want somebody to either argue with or to work out their own frustrations. Well, I think that's, I'm not against a little victory here and then. And if indeed she was close enough to your sprinklers to get wet, that's bad is on her. Yvonne is being joined by the owl, deception or wisdom. Azure is being joined by the focus card. Xana is being joined by the spider. Oh, ho, ho. And Celeste is being joined by the dog. All right, my Libras. The thing about the Libra energy is it contains the supergalactic center at 2 degrees of Libra, which is really about, seeing yourself as source energy. And that being of source means that as you put your attention on something, you draw the components of that into your life. So the 9 of Pentacles echoes that, right? This woman knows how. Her robe, her garment is red, so she knows how to take care of herself, the base chakra, but it comes from the robe over her, the purple one, the one that goes all the way up to her crown, her third eye chakra. I think this is very important. That crown of flowers is this ease. And I think that there's a bit of taming here, because Libra can be overly cooperative, like they really don't like confrontation, which is why in the beginning of my life, I did not believe in astrology, because here I am, a Libra sun, and everybody's telling me that I'm indecisive and non-confrontational. And I'm like, I'm decisive and I'm confrontational. And then I learned about my Aries rising and my Taurus moon, because here for my Libras, you're being tasked to be vulnerable to the idea that balance comes from things that are imbalanced. Literally, black and white serve each other. If there was too much light, we would burn. If there was too much darkness, we would freeze. So here you're being tasked to see the ebb and the flow. And during that period of time, you're being tasked to focus in on your outcome, what it is you want, which goes back to this. Now, I want to offer this because when I'm talking to Spirit, I never ask for money. I ask for the flow of money. I ask for the security and the peace of knowing that the flow will always be there. I'm 66 years old, guys, 66 and a half. I'm about to round up my 67th year of life in a few months. And, I've never played a strong financial game. And I say that because I've always played a strong vibrational game. And, as we get through markers in the physical, we sometimes are even more tasked to trust what we're building for ourselves. Because here, Xana's upside down is telling you don't need to be protected. You have spirit. You have the web of your relationship with God and the angels, with your inner being, with your own soul that speaks there outside of yourself or holds space. Because Spirit is saying you don't need to shift, you don't need to move, you don't need to do anything. You just need to stay in your dog energy, which is to be loyal to your deeper truth, to be unconditional to your own process. This is not a group card. This is an individual card where this character, because I don't want to exclude the male energy, has made their own kingdom. So here, I think this is about being vulnerable this week to maybe the ebb and the flow. And if we think about it too, the Aries energy is opposing the Libra energy. So you could see this Aries stellium in your 6th or 7th house. You could definitely feel like potentially war through work, war through partnership, or an assault on your diplomacy, an assault on your peace. And here it's like saying, stay loyal to yourself, understand the ebb and the flow, and then turn your head towards that which brings you peace. This might be where the Design Home app comes in. I mean, it does for me. And if any of you join the app, look for me. You can borrow my furniture. And I have lots and lots of furniture at this point. Maybe not as much as some people, but lots nonetheless. I smoke cigarettes and weed every day because living here, there is the other day there was a whole group of people who came to the beach. Their children were very loud. There was all sorts of disruption. And then they finally drove off. And when I looked to where their car had been, they left like a huge, huge trash bag of crap that like was there for days. It's amazing what people do. And I live in a state where weed is legal. So people walk down the street smoking weed. And then the cigarettes are illegal in my city. And people are always hiding somewhere. And when they hide under the trash can, the smoke comes this way. And then my neighbor next door, she says she doesn't smoke, but she smokes when she drinks. Did I say that out loud? Okay, Scorpio, the 8 of Wands, news, conclusions. Oh my God, I've got some information. Now I know something, or an ending of some kind. Let's see what's going on. Oh, good for you for quitting smoking, and the app will help you not smoke. Well, be my friend, DJ, Terry Hunter Designs. Just like, you can find me. You'll see my picture. In fact, I think one of my pictures is actually me doing the show. Hey, KK 28. KK 28. All right, here we go. Scorpio. One of my favorite and most annoying signs. I love Scorpio, actually. Athena, it's safe for you to be powerful, lovingly powerful. Ariel is upside down. New experiences are, you're missing something. Isaiah saying it's time, you're being protected to start something. And then patience is about gathering information. And there's the information card. All right, let's see where we're going. You know, Scorpio, the early born Scorpios, this is October born Scorpios, early, maybe early November, but definitely October. You're getting that square. And that square is not always negative. It could be, and I say that because the tension in a square could compel you to step into your power, step into your greatness. And I found that is often true when it comes to especially the Scorpio energy. It seems Scorpio is inspired sometimes by negative things. And I don't mean that bad. I mean it like if you try to hold a Scorpio down, they're going to keep pushing and poking at the box. They're like, nope, that's not happening. Nope. And I rarely meet a Scorpio that has been muted by Saturn. Somehow they seem to get through that. Athena is being joined by the focus card. So you're having to focus in on how you do your power. They're telling you to come back in partnership with your guides and your angels and start your prayer work again. Isaiah is asking you to come through things for the lens of love. And then patience is giving you a complete rebirth. I will offer this for my Leos. I will bet you your co-ruling planet Mars is in its rulership of Aries. This stellium is going to bring something into your awareness that's going to compel you or inspire you or piss you off. Maybe, I don't know. But you're gonna start doing some serious thinking. This week is going to be the beginning of the new beginning. And I think this is information that leads to a conclusion. I don't know if I think it leads to an ending, but I think that you're going to start focusing in on how you assert yourself. Because sometimes the greatest warrior doesn't actually play their hand. They don't tell you what they're going to do. They show you what they're going to do. But now Spirit is saying, get off that scorpionic ledge of Pluto and come back into the bravery of Mars. Come back into the awareness of the psychological dynamic of what Scorpio possesses, because you might be missing your spiritual highway right now, the partnership card. Because if somebody pisses you off, you could inadvertently react. If you look at this card, there's a lot of energy on the card. Yes, the app is free. The diamonds are not free. The app is free. Anyway, and then in the angel's advice is this is time to start to look. And this love card is not about intimate love. It's not even about love of another human. It's about how you transform yourself, how you transform your view of yourself. Every person that I know that has strong planets, like strong Mars, Pluto energies, they never want to dumb themselves down, but they are often villainized for their frankness, their bluntness, their directness. And so here, this is about you using this, coming to some kind of conclusion where you're braiding now what you know on a spiritual level about asserting yourself, and where you might come in from the muggle level, where, you're more ego invested into somebody else's reaction. Because here the patience card is about gathering information, and there's the rebirth. So ultimately what I think is there's a square to Pluto. There's other things going on in the chart, but that the Aries energy having the co-ruler of Scorpio involved in that huge stellium is telling me that you're going to experience your power this week, and you're going to be tasked in knowing how to use it. And it's not about ever giving up your sword or laying your sword down. It's making sure that it's sharp enough if you decide you're going to lob someone's head off, or you might not want to use it at all because it's not worth your time. But in any case, some information is going to come through. Congratulations, DJ. Seeing life through the eyes of clarity is fun. I remember thinking to myself last night, I didn't know I could cry so much when I'm sober. I feel like oftentimes if I drink wine, I get more melancholy, but I haven't been drinking, not for any particular reason, just kind of come and go. I think I had a little wine on Easter Sunday, but that was it. And yeah, no, I can still emote and feel funky. But all right, we're on to our Sagittarius, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Ooh, the Six of Swords. Something is going to move into smoother waters. Now, this is interesting that I say this because your planet is in Jupiter is in a sextile to Venus this week, and today it's today through the 15th. We'll be feeling this. It's at 16 degrees here, and I want to offer this too because when I look at this, I can't help but notice in this particular deck, the guy is cradled in this cuckoo. I don't know if you want to call it it's not a kayak, some sort of water vessel. It feels to me that this character is resting. And the two whales are like a soul's destiny. And there's an interesting dynamic of surrendering to something, like being at peace with a situation. Hi, Jenny. Welcome to the room. Let's see where we're going with this. And you know what else is interesting about this? I don't know if you can see it, but there's a whale here in translucent. The whales in symbolism represent the soul's calling. The Six Swords are interesting to me because they're kind of representing those first 6 houses of the Zodiac. And then this little crescent moon down here makes me feel as if there's something about the soul that is resting after a period of sorrow. And there's a feeling of coming back into balance somehow. When I look at this vessel, the primary colors are red and white and black. And then there's even this feeling that this particular little circle has like an eye feeling to it, like a whale's eye. So I'm thinking very much that Sagittarius is going to come into a period of rest after a situation. Let's see where we're going. And maybe even feeling a bit more clarity on what your soul wants. This last, since 2026 started, it's really had me, like I was thinking about Gus and the fact that he took himself out, he took himself out in a very, healthy and balanced way. But, the bottom line is he didn't see a future. He didn't see a reason to go on. He's got 2 children. Yes, they're in their midlife and grown, but he still wasn't finding what he wanted in the way of feeling joy. And I think in these times that's really, a lot of us are feeling that. It's exasperated by the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. We're being tasked by Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto in their favorable conversation to dig a little deeper and to look at not just our own toxic habits, but what we have been trained to feel. I think the reason a lot of us are reaching burnout is because we've been pushed and pushed and pushed. Create. What did you do today? How were you productive? What if you say to somebody, oh, I spent 2 hours on my design home app and I didn't make any money today, but I got 65 5-star reviews. You know what I mean? Like, is it okay to just enjoy your life? Because Lulu's not stressed out right now. She's not thinking I got to go do something. She's thinking, oh, it's time for me to just enjoy. Yeah, we can't fake it any longer. And I think so. This is Sagittarius. And if you think about Sagittarius, it's expansion, expansion, expansion. Well, you can't expand constantly. There has to be some sort of contraction at some point. That's the only way there's balance. And maybe the contraction is just to rest. Here we go. Our first angel is Azure. Your desired outcome will happen in the near future. Have faith and patience. There's Chantal, the angel of love and romance. Then we have Caressa. Something's not ending. There's no end in sight just yet. And then there's, oh, wow, this is about love, love, love. Good for you, girl. You sit in that moment because rest is truly where spirit lives. I do not believe that God and the angels are running around in heaven thinking, oh no, the earth is falling apart. We better go over here. We better go over here. We better over here. I'm pretty sure they're like, oh, that shit show will keep going on. Let's go get something to eat. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right. Azure is being joined by the Wealth card. That's very Jupiterian. Thank you, DJ. Chantal is being joined by the Burden card. Very interesting. Caressa's being joined by the Queen. Remember, Caressa's upside down. And the final is the Deer. Okay, this is very much about settling in. You know, honestly, I do believe that this guy and this Six of Swords is asking Sagittarius to rest this week. And I mean it in such a way where there might be nothing you can do about a situation. There could be absolutely no amount of talking or action or doing anything. And if indeed that stellium, because Sagittarius, your fifth house is the house of romance, and that's Aries. And here comes that whoosh of fire. I mean, literally, it could be very explosive. And with Saturn's influence in there at the end of the week, it could bring up old shit. Thank you so much, KK. Thank you. I don't think I said that right. KK28. Because this wealth and your desired outcome is literally where you get to stand this week. And it ends with you being very gentle and diplomatic about a history that you may have in relationships. Because your partner or your people that you love can be a pain in the ass this week. They could be cranky. They could be, you know, this is kind of the interesting thing. There are certain people that I know, and these are the unconscious people that I grew up with, who when they fight with someone, they forget that they love them. They sometimes even forget they're married to them. And they say shit that nobody should say to anybody that they care about. Because what it looks like to me is Sagittarius, a situation is not ending. This is absolutely about how you interact with other people. What you want will happen, but I think that whoever you're interacting with may have an issue or some sort of, I don't know, they might be a bit of a burden. They may be stuck in their old story. And part of what you get to know is this is an ending. This is just another cycle of here we go up and down. And how do I want to play it out this time? Years ago, when Oprah first started her channel, she had Super Soul Sunday, and I used to watch it for a little while. I've since long given it up, but there was a guy on that show. I don't remember his name. And he had stepped out of his marriage. And when his wife found out, they decided to stay together. But for 10 years, she was pissed off. And he said that, you know, it was a really rocky ride. They went up and down. But there was somewhere in that 10th year where they were able to come back together and to recalibrate the situation. And here, I really think there's something that his historic is going to come up. It doesn't have to be something as big as a stepping out situation, but it could potentially be where your partner is, you know, maybe they're Debbie Downer, maybe they're having a hard time at work, maybe they're bitching about their mom and that same old thing. And you're like, why don't you just do this? This is a time, zip your lip, say, you know, be as gentle as you possibly can for whatever their history is, and know that if you really love them and want to be with them, this is all part of the show. This is all part of the mix. Because literally, this isn't a time to teach them. This isn't a time to tell them anything. This might be a time just to listen. And that might be when Jupiter's in Gemini. It's required to listen a little bit more than it speaks. Jupiter's can be very challenging. And I say that because I have Jupiter at 2 degrees of Sagittarius. And according to Nikolai Stavanovich, you know, I want to be the best at everything. And that's very, very true. So... And I have to remember sometimes that just because I know something doesn't mean somebody else knows it. And sometimes I'm better served if I keep my mouth shut. And it's not easy for me. Ask Small Wildflowers, because I tell her all the time, I'm going to try to keep my mouth shut. And then it just keeps moving. Okay, thank you, Susie. All right, here we go. We're on to our Capricorn, Rising Moon, Sun, and Stellium. We have 3 more signs to go. The transcending quadrant of the Zodiac, which is Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. So our card is the Ace of Cups for our Capricorns. That is so lovely, because if anybody deserves cups, it's the Capricorn. Our sign of duty, obligation, leadership. And in some cases, no fun. Sorry. Capricorn out of balance is all work and no play. I am on fire today, aren't I? I don't know why. I didn't feel fiery, but again, here I am. My south node is being activated by this stellium. My south node is at 3 degrees of Aries in the 12th house. I have Mercury hitting it this week. Right now, Mars is sitting on my south node along with Neptune. Oh my God. It's just like, I honestly, I'm not fighting the tide anymore. I just expect spirit to provide all the resources, AKA money, that I need to, pay my bills and pay for my diamonds on the Design Home app. First angel for our Capricorns is you are a child of God, Opal. The second is Athena. It's safe for you to be powerful. Fiona is saying, now that you've asked God and the angels for help, be open to receiving, but you are not, because she's upside down. This is where it gets a little hard sometimes, traversing between being aware of our soul and our intention and a bigger picture, and then living in this little muggle world in these little bodies that appear to be very frail, according to every commercial you will see in the United States on television. Opal is being joined by the deer. Again, we're seeing a lot of, it's interesting. I talk about this week being full of fire and brimstone and potential arguments and anger. And, I think it's action, fire. I think there's military war. I think there's arguments this week. And here we're seeing the deer coming in over and over again. Be gentle, be diplomatic. This is not with everybody else. This is with yourself. Because if you're gentle and diplomatic with yourself, then you will naturally, it'll flow out to others. Athena is saying to be gentle and you can be powerful. Athena's a powerful energy, but we've got this with the wind fairy. And I almost feel like this might be you as a Capricorn. Capricorn strategize. When I put Mars and when I put Mars and Saturn together, this is military action. We're gone into the war room. We're discussing, the potentials, and we're strategizing. So here, Athena is saying it's safe for you to be lovingly assertive, but be mindful of your words. Be mindful of how you're analyzing the situation, because I think this is where the Ace of Cups comes in. Fiona is upside down, saying that you're not connecting with spirit. And then there's the Lady of the Lake, which is an argument between my head and my emotions. That makes sense. And Rosetta's being joined by the Joy card. Okay, this week there could very well be, because while Saturn is in Aries, and I believe it's a complementary energy, every other astrologer says slow versus fast. I disagree, because Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So this is a time to be gentle with yourself and diplomatic and connect with your soul, with spirit. You will be tasked on some level to take action. And I believe that the wind fairy is actually representing old patterns of, when I find out someone's a Virgo, a Capricorn, or a Taurus, I know they'll work hard. 90% of the time, they may have a lot of holes in other areas, but they'll work hard and they'll try to do their best. Here, when I look at this for Capricorn, I almost feel like there is a trigger of my old self. There's a trigger of the way that I have been and how I'm expected to be. And when I go into the angel's advice and it says, now that you ask God and the angels for help, be open to receiving, I feel like I don't know that God is watching over me. I feel like I'm living through an old situation, and here I go, Saturn rules history, and I'm having that fight between my head and my heart again. Do I believe in all this mumbo jumbo soul shit? Or look, here's the truth. These are the bills, this is the money, and this is what I have to do. This is the challenge of Capricorn. But now we sit in Rosetta. Rosetta is all about children and parenting and loving children. There's the Joy card. You are a child of God. Be gentle with yourself, Capricorn, as you continue to go through a transformation. Pluto is in potentially still your first house, if indeed you have Aquarian energy in your first house. It's also going into the house of self-worth. So here, stay in your emotional body. Be aware of how you analyze where your responsibilities lie and where your personal joy and your personal pleasure lie. And somewhere the truth lies in the middle, is how I want to say it. Don't ever try, Jenny. Just call the earth, call the energy forth. Now, this is the thing. You want to also call forth a Virgo who enjoys the process, but you know who's good with knives are Mars and Scorpio. They rule scissors. So if you want to get a good haircut, you might look for an Aries, or you might look for a Scorpio, or someone who has their moon in Aries. So when you're looking for a Virgo, you want to make sure that you tell a spirit that they're a Virgo who isn't so married to their process sometimes that they get a little stuck. That's the one little challenge with the Virgo energy. I had a friend who supposedly was a Leo, but you couldn't find Leo energy in this guy at all, if you ask me. And we both lived up in Santa Monica for years. We were friends. And then I moved down here. He would come to visit me. And about 5 miles away, there's a Starbucks. And it goes on his path of how he drove here. He would not take a different route. He would only take the same route every time. Once he established the route, that's what he took. When I told him there is a Starbucks that is literally 2 minutes walk from my house, where if you stopped there to get the coffee, then it would be hot when you got here versus it being cold. And what he said to me was, I can't do that. It's not the way I go. And that's the Virgo energy you want to avoid, because it doesn't change. It becomes a little hard. So this is where we saw his Leo was fixed, but clearly his Venus, I think Venus and Mercury were both in Virgo for him. And that combination made him a very loving, good guy, but he just was not flexible, which was ultimately why it never worked out for us. All right. Now we go on to our Aquarians. Now, I don't want you to freak out when you see this, because it's not an easy energy. It's a 3 of Swords. Okay. Let's see where we're going with this, because it's a card where I feel betrayed. I feel alone. I feel heartbroken. Let's see where we go. Because if indeed there is a challenge this week, and there is arguments, and we're looking at Aquarius, we're also looking at a sextile to Aries. So if indeed there's an upset and there's potential betrayal, it could be a clearing of the air. You know, it could be very liberating on some level. And it doesn't mean that you walk out of that situation, but maybe liberate the situation into a higher vibration. Susie, that's so funny, because I saw a video on YouTube on how to cut your own hair. I've cut my own hair. Well, clearly I haven't cut much of it, but I've been doing the ends for the last, I've just gotten too lazy to go get a haircut. The Virgo with Venus, not Venus, my Venus is in Virgo. And with the South Node hovering over my Venus and Pluto, I don't even want to put on makeup. This is the first time I put on makeup in a week. All right, Aquarius, Grace and Antoinette, compassion. Ooh, boy. Fiona says, now that you ask God and the angels for help, be open to receiving. Aurora says, you're flying high right now. Don't descend, because you'll soon set an example. And then Caressa says, you're at the end of a life cycle. Oh, boy, this is kind of interesting. You could be going through a situation where Pluto has removed something from you. And in doing so, there's something better that comes in its place. I just need a good pair of scissors. I think it's the scissors I use that make it so bad for me. Ooh, Grace and Antoinette's being joined by the hawk. There are signs and omens here. 3 of Swords is not reversed today. It's coming up straight up. Okay, Fiona's being joined by the raven. Aurora's being joined by the king. And Caressa's being joined by the dog. Okay, so a little bit of a challenge here, because Grace and Antoinette is about compassion, and then there are the signs and the omens. Somewhere God and the angels are trying to send you a message to open things up. Fiona is saying that God is here. Be open to receiving the message. This girl can't see any message. She's too sad. Now we have the magical raven. The raven is about synchronistic events. And I want to offer this because years ago I did a reading for somebody and they were entertaining a gentleman, and that relationship ended up breaking up, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then 9 months later, she called me again. Maybe it was, in between, I don't know, but he had come back. And in that period of time, he had a realization about who she was and how she showed up. And he regretted what had happened. Now, Aquarius is a fixed sign. So once it makes up its mind, sometimes it, makes it more difficult to change. But when I look at Aurora saying, don't descend, you're flying high right now, you don't know it because you're hurt. I think that there's the potential that there could be a situation that comes back to you and you recognize that you're getting validated somehow, that you are being seen as the king. But at the same time, because of the situation and how it plays out, you may not want to continue it, because Caressa definitely talks about the end of a life cycle, and the dog is about loyalty, and this card is about betrayal. So I think that while this is not an easy spread, it can feel a little bit illuminating. You may have inadvertently sensed something coming up, because Pluto will absolutely make you feel something pending. And, at this point, having compassion for yourself, because again, it's not easy to move a fixed sign. And we already have a very challenged energy in Aquarius, because there's already a sense of anxiety that comes with it. There is, your ruling planet is coming into a vibration with Venus this week, and that could bring unexpected illuminations about relationships. And it could be hard. And it could be, I want to offer this too, because betrayal does not always involve a third party. When my friend of 50 some odd years started gaslighting me and started managing how I grieve from the love of my first love, I started to re-examine how that person's influence in my life. They've never really been a friend of mine that I hung out with, actually. It was someone I knew in high school that was always at the parties I was at. And yes, we've hung out over the years, but he was never in my circle. But somewhere in our 30s or late 20s, he started calling me up with this joke, right? Have you fallen down and you can't get up? There's a commercial for some heart alert, life alert. And so it became this kind of joke. At least I thought it was a joke. And now it's 50 years later and he's still playing this joke, only now he's playing it like it's real. Like, I can't take care of myself and I'm going to kill myself because my first love died. That's asinine to me. That is ridiculous. And then the gaslighting of my emotion. Are you over it yet? Fuck off. Sorry, I said it. This could be what happens to Aquarius. This could be where somebody, literally, you feel betrayed because you think somebody knows you, and then they reveal to them that they don't know you. They think they know you and they act like they know you, or they may even talk like they know you, but it's all been about them. Because what I realized about this particular guy is, because of his personal appearance, never a looker in high school, never a cool guy, he has made a career of surrounding himself with people who are out of balance, that he can be better than, and that he can be the hero for. I don't need a hero. I don't need that kind of hero, at least. And so you may find, my Aquariuses, that somebody has been misrepresenting you. And you may just be like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to be loyal to myself, and I'm not going to continue that. You know what? Blocking people is too much of a resistant energy. I wouldn't block him. I think he's generally a good person. I think he's hiding behind his own insecurities, and he started to tell himself a story for so long that he made it real. I don't live in an imaginary world, and I evolve and I change and I grow. I don't know a lot of people, except in this tribe, that bother to do that. They just live. And I don't expect this guy to live very long, actually, because of the way he takes care of himself. If you saw him in person, you can look into his eyes and you can see that he's very unhealthy. All right, our final sign is our Pisces. And this card is really an interesting one because you have gone through quite a stint over the last 2 years. You had Saturn going through your first house. Now you have Saturn in your second house. You have Neptune that went through your first house. Now it's in your second house. Everything about your skills, everything about your talents, everything about your abilities is being asked to individualize, asked to being birthed, asked to being explored. And now we see the Tower. I think that this is a great card. A lot of people think this is Mars that do the tarot and astrology. I don't at all. This is Uranus. Uranus rules lightning. Uranus rules liberation. Uranus rules the vision of peace in the future. Okay. So for me, this is Pisces. Oh, and this is another interesting thing. I just noticed the sun is setting or maybe rising on one side, and then there's like a meteor on the other side, which I think is really interesting because it's almost as if something comes out of nowhere. There's a lightning strike, and it has to do with your ego, the sun. Let's see where we're going. Because while Pisces is a compassionate sign, Pisces is no pansy, okay? And when a Pisces gets pissed off, I would run. Because when that fish is flopping on the pier, it's got teeth. It's going to bite. So I think there's a whoop. 2 cards flew out of the deck. Okay, here we go. Archangel Gabriel and Merlina. And I'm picking them just the way they came up. Archangel Gabriel is straight up. Merlina is upside down. Then we have Shanti, the angel of peace, and Indriel, the light worker. Okay. Now, I was just talking about the second house. The second house is not just your opinion, not just your family history. It is your skills. It is your talents, your ability to make your own money. I was starting to think I was going to have a second career as a designer. But then I thought, I don't want to turn anything more I love into a job. All right, Archangel Gabriel is being joined by the bee. Oh, that's exciting. Merlina's being joined by the letting go card. Now, remember, Merlina's upside down. Merlina rules confusion and indecision. And now we've got you're having some sort of epiphany. Oh, Shanti is being joined by the human ego. Wow. And finally, the cow is joining the Indriel, the light worker. All right, so our final sign today. You are going to have a major epiphany. Something is going to hit. Something is going to, I think it has something to do with Venus coming into a conjunction with Uranus. Now, that would be for Pisces. That's your third house, okay? So this makes sense because Archangel Gabriel is about thought and speech, and here is victory and industry. I think that this is somehow a liberating energy. I think that you're done being confused. I think you're done being invisible. I think this letting go card is actually a let it grow card. If I look at Shanti, the peace comes from this, interestingly, this wounded ego doesn't feel wounded to me. It actually feels like there's an awareness of my ego. And there's an awareness that I must liberate myself on some level from what's been going on so that I can feel at peace, because something's been dimming your light. And now Spirit wants you to nurture that light. It wants you to start to ask and receive. And that might be something that you, literally what this looks like is that you have an opportunity to feel triumphant over a situation, a dynamic, even an emotion. You have an opportunity to liberate yourself, to feel a sense of peace, but you're also going to be recognizing somewhere where your ego's been invested in something, and you may no longer be invested in it. Well, Susie, that makes perfect sense because the transit of Saturn is a 2-year process, give or take a little bit. And it would have been coming up with Neptune, which hasn't happened in 1,500 years, a little less. So this would be about not just finding something, but creating something that's more authentic. Well, I went through a situation where I kept trying to find a job, but the more I got invested in the scarcity of work, the less I was getting close to the truth of me, and Spirit wouldn't let me get a job. I had to surrender. And when I surrendered to Spirit, then before I knew it, an opportunity came. And that opportunity was what led over a 3-year process to me birthing myself a little more authentically. So I feel like for my Pisces, this is really an interior job. This is an epiphany. This is stepping out from the shadows. This is confusion no more. And I want to offer this too, because that ego card, while it represents the wounded ego, because it was written by humans, for my Pisces, you may not have a big enough ego. And now you're realizing, I need to stand in my light. I need to be more individualistic, more standing in this energy of my hopes and my dreams, and then calling forth for me to receive that. So there is a strong feeling of oppressiveness, but that oppression is sometimes the vessel for the illumination. Because when we become so unable to move, we suddenly recognize we're trying to move down the same road that we weren't enjoying. And we need to take a side road. We need to find, the turnoff of that road, but we don't realize we're on it because so much of life reinforces that road. How you doing? How's work? How's the family? How's your love life? How are your kids? If you don't have all the right answers for that, then who knows who says what about you? Oh, their life's a shit show. They can't find work. They da. So we worry a lot about that. So this reality that feels oppressive is an opportunity to say, Spirit, I'm tired. I want to open the space up a little bit. I want you to give me an experience that anchors my faith into that dynamic. So we start working in coordination with that. And I do think that's a little bit where that light worker card being upside down, because with the Pisces energy, I think it's so fascinating that Aries is your second house, because it's demanding you address yourself. It's demanding that you explore and be the hero in your own self-worth. So check it out. And if for some reason in your Pisces energy, you're seeing all of this in the first house of Aries, you got a little Aries energy in your first house, that would put a double boom, boom on it. So, all right, everybody, that's it for me for today. Thank you for joining me. It was great to have you in the room. And Small Wildflowers, it was wonderful to see you. I'm glad. I hope your son-in-law is doing better and that his knees, I think it was his knees, are okay. I'll be back next week, and it will be Taurus season. Ooh. Wait, will it be Taurus season yet? No, not quite. It'll still be Aries season. All right. I can't remember who I am in human design. I think I thought I was a manifester, but I think I'm something else. I don't know. But all right, everybody, sending lots of love to you. Have a wonderful week. Be mindful. If you know somebody pisses you off or is cranky, shut the blinds, turn your head, don't pick up the phone, whatever you need to do to protect yourself from reacting to potentially challenging, fiery energy. And if indeed you be careful about the news this week, could be very inflammatory. All right. Love you all. See you later. Bye. I got to go up here now.